Okay. Canto 11, chapter 19. Long list of verses here, 40 to 45. And since it's a long Sanskrit, I'm just going to read the translation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 40 through 45, Canto 11, Chapter 19. Actual opulence is my own nature as the personality of Godhead through which I exhibit the 6 unlimited opulences. The supreme gain in life is devotional service to me, and actual education is nullifying the false perception of duality within the soul. Real modesty is to be disgusted with improper activities, and beauty is to possess good qualities such as detachment. Real happiness is to transcend material happiness and unhappiness, and real misery is to be implicated in searching for sex pleasure. A wise man is one who knows the process of freedom from bondage, and a fool is one who identifies with his material body and mind. The real path in life is that which leads to me, and the wrong path is sense gratification by which consciousness is bewildered. Actual heaven is the predominance of the mode of goodness, whereas hell is the predominance of ignorance. I am everyone's true friend, acting as the spiritual master of the entire universe, and one's home is the human body. My dear friend Uddhava, one who is enriched with good qualities is actually said to be rich, and one who is unsatisfied in life is actually poor. A wretched person is one who cannot control his senses, whereas one who is not attached to sense gratification is a real controller. One who attaches himself to sense gratification is the opposite, a slave. Thus, Uddhava, I have elucidated all the matters about which you inquired. There's no need for a more elaborate description of these good and bad qualities, since to constantly see good and bad is itself a bad quality. The best quality is to transcend material good and evil. Wow. Very nice. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is naturally full of 6 opulences, namely unlimited beauty, wealth, fame, knowledge, strength, and renunciation. Therefore, the greatest profit in life is to achieve personal loving service to the Lord, who is naturally the reservoir of all pleasure. Real education means to give up the false idea that anything is separate from the Lord, the source of all potencies. Similarly, one should not falsely consider the individual soul to be different or separate from the Supreme Soul. Mere bashfulness does not constitute modesty. One should spontaneously withdraw in disgust from sinful activities. Then one is actually modest or humble. One who is satisfied in Krishna consciousness and thus does not seek material pleasure or suffer material unhappiness, is considered to be actually situated in happiness. The most wretched person is one addicted to sex pleasure, and a wise man is one who knows the process of freedom from such bondage. A fool is one who gives up his eternal friendship with Lord Krishna and instead identifies himself with his own temporary material body, mind, society, community, and family. The real path in life is not simply a modern interstate highway, or, in more simple cultures, a footpath free from thorns and mud. It is that path that leads to Lord Krishna. The wrong path in life is not simply a road having many thieves or toll booths. It is that path that leads one to utter confusion in material sense gratification. A heavenly situation is that in which the mode of goodness predominates rather than found on the planet of Indra, where passion and ignorance sometimes disturb the celestial atmosphere. Hell is anywhere the mode of ignorance is predominant, and not merely the hellish planets, where, according to Lord Shiva, a pure devotee can think of Krishna and remain happy. Our actual friend in life is the bona fide spiritual master who saves us from all dangers among all gurus. Lord Krishna is himself the Jagat Guru, or spiritual master of the entire universe. In material life, our own material body is our immediate home, rather than some structure of brick, cement, stone, and wood. A rich man is one who possesses innumerable good qualities, semicolon. He is not a neurotic fool with a large bank account. A poor man is one who is unsatisfied, which is self-explanatory. One who cannot control his senses is certainly wretched and miserable in life, whereas one who detaches himself from material life is actually a lord or controller. In modern times, there are remnants of aristocracy in Europe and other countries, but such so-called lords often display the habits of lower forms of life. A real lord is one who conquers material existence by rising to the spiritual platform. A person who is attached to material life will undoubtedly manifest the opposites of all the good qualities mentioned here, and he is thus the symbol of going backward in life. The Lord concludes his analysis by stating that there is no need for further elaboration on these good and bad qualities. Indeed, the purpose of life is to transcend materially good and bad qualities and come to the liberated platform of pure Krishna consciousness. This point will be further explained in the following chapter. Can't wait. Further explained. Now, naturally, concluding, one of the messages concluding in this section, in this verse, Krishna is saying there's no need for further elaboration, and certainly there's volumes and volumes of further elaboration that one could give, or acharyas can give, or teachers can give, because there's always the question, the how-to question. How to apply this, how to apply that, how to become properly situated, because I'm not properly situated, and I'm struggling with this and struggling with that, so how do I get there? And so forth. There is certainly, although Krishna is declaring there's no need for further elaboration, there can be further elaboration, and it's appropriate. But so what's the meaning? The meaning is there's the stage of the mode of goodness and good versus bad qualities. So that's another point that's being made in the purport, that focusing on good and contrasting with bad, this is on the material platform, because on the transcendental platform, it's all good absolute. Like stealing. When Krishna is stealing, it's all good absolute, and so forth. Moralists may look at Krishna did this, and Krishna did that, and so how can he be God? Or imitating something, 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 and saying Krishna did, and that's transcendental, so I'm doing because Krishna did, and that's transcendental. So there are foolish people that don't understand transcendence, and misapply transcendence to our worldly activity, and vice versa. Therefore, that statement, there's no need for further elaboration. The explanation given is the very act of saying this is good and that is bad is on the material platform, and thus implied is fault finding. And so we're practicing devotees, we're sadhakas, and we must have a proper understanding of what is to be done, what is not to be done. The idea of transcendence is not who cares, or there's no standard, or anything goes. Because one of the verses before Krishna spoke these verses, that's further elaboration on pure devotional service, which Arjuna asked, you've already explained it. Then Krishna says, I explained it, and it's supported by the mode of goodness. We discussed this yesterday. And that supported by the mode of goodness doesn't mean one must be or should be, or, in this good category as opposed to the bad category. It's the mode of goodness lends itself to proper execution of duty, and the proper execution of duty lends itself to going in the direction of transcendence, provided there's GPS is on. You know what the destination is. And otherwise, it's meandering through different situations in material life, upper and lower and in between, without sangsadhir haritoshanam, without the transcendental purpose, hari toshanam, Krishna should be pleased. So that's the platform of pure devotional service. Again, the platform of pure devotional service, we say it backwards. The platform of pure devotional service is that Krishna should be pleased. And when all things are done with the intention that Krishna should be pleased, the natural byproduct of that is goodness, because Krishna is pleased. Or transcendental goodness. With the aim that Krishna should be pleased. There's an interesting detail in Sri Vaishnava history. There are a number of Alvars that are the founders of the teachings of Sri Vaishnavism, and Ramanujacharya drew from those teachings to establish the fundamentals of Sri Vaishnavism, along with commentary on Vedanta Sutra, according to those Alvars. One of those Alvars, Tirumangai, I think his name was, he came to Sri Rangam and he saw the deity of Ranganath and saw that there was no temple for an altar, etc., for he had been abandoned. So he, being the acharya that he was, he wanted to establish a temple for the deity. And when he went forward as a mendicant, people weren't helping. And he then did what he did. He had some assistants with him that had mystic powers. Some could walk on water, and some could, enter into a building. Some could become very small. This and that and the other thing. And then he engaged them in stealing from people that had the means but weren't voluntarily coming forward with the means, and he built a nice temple. Now that's not to be done. And for the service of the Supreme Lord, it's like Krishna stealing butter. He was stealing for the satisfaction of Krishna. Now, other remedies were, anyway, so we don't imitate. We don't steal to build the temple. But if the purity of an individual is on such a level and caliber, then even that which is not to be done is to be done. And that which is to be done is not to be done, if it's not for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. And then who's going to judge? Where's the line? And consciousness is the line in the qualification of the person. So he's honored with an Alvar title because he was so qualified. So what's the yardstick for who's qualified, who's not qualified? Then it's the same, that unalloyed devotional service, nothing else. The personality of God is to be pleased. And that's what's going to come in the next chapter. There's goodness and the contrast of the opposite of goodness, and examples of both, or principles at least of both. And that's a direction, that's a mode of goodness direction. And we follow the mode of goodness direction, particularly according to the guidelines of Scripture. And then there's beyond goodness. And Krishna is giving this to Uddhava in a similar manner as Krishna is giving Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. That is, for our benefit. Uddhava is speaking, he's making sounds with his mouth, inspired by Krishna from within. And he's taking the position, although it's not, we discussed this, it's not that he didn't know, he just wants to hear, again, for further illumination, elevation, elucidation, clarification, mainly for our benefit. The Krishna's purpose is for our benefit, not that Uddhava is, kind of not there yet. So he wants Uddhava to get to the topmost position. He's already in the topmost position. And then there's this nice understanding that we find in Chaitanya Charitamrita, perfect, more perfect, most perfect. That's a nice approach. So the elevated position that Uddhava is in, he's a dear friend and devotee. Dear most friend and dear most devotee. So he has all qualification because of that. And because of that, then Krishna's engaging him in the way that Krishna is engaging him. Questions, answers. So we could take, it can go, because you came a little late, we can go back and cover some of the points that Krishna is establishing in the verse, and then the purport is simply echoing what's in the verse. Do a little bit of that. Actual opulence is my own nature through the six opulences of Bhagavan. That's actual opulence. Now, that's not mode of goodness. That's transcendence. The supreme gain in life is devotional service to me. Of course, there's degrees of that devotional service. We're all engaged in devotional service, but mixed. And then there's unmixed. The supreme gain in life is devotional service to me, and actual education is nullifying the false perception of duality within the soul. So that's a negation. And then there's the positive, and then there's superlative, comparative superlative. So that's what's, there's no need to further discuss idea. So it's pointing a direction. All these nice examples, they're ideal. And pointing a direction, and then comparative superlative. And with the next chapter has to do with detachment, and the detachment means intensification of attachment to Krishna. Attachment to Krishna. Like the Queen Kunti verse that we discussed. She's there, but she's praying as if she's not there. The attachment. As the mind goes, let my mind go in attachment to you. Her mind is already going in attachment to Krishna. That's why she's offering the prayers that she's offering. Krishna's leaving. He's leaving. She doesn't say, please don't go. But that's her mood. Please don't go. But even if he goes, and when he does go, the mind goes with Krishna. And consequently, Yudhisthira made a request, just stay a few more days. So Krishna stayed a few more days, because he reciprocates the love of his devotees. But he left. And leaving behind the impression. Same here with Uddhava. Same with Uddhava. Because the situation is Dwarka. And Uddhava knows Krishna is going to depart. He doesn't say, don't go. He says, take me with you. And Krishna doesn't take him with him. Krishna gives him some service to do in separation. It's etc. So the behind, final thing, behind everything there's loving exchange. So there's rasa, the highest siddhanta, the highest, concluding picture of everything that's in relation to Krishna and Krishna's pastimes and Krishna's teachings is rasa. Just like we discussed yesterday, the rasa of Krishna wanting the cowherd boys to not enter the mouth of Aghasura, and they entered in the mouth of Aghasura. Which is, how to understand that. Is he the Supreme Lord or not? And if he's the Supreme Lord, then he doesn't have to do anything. His desires, and it happens because he's the Supreme Lord. End of story. But it didn't happen that way. So why is that? The rasa is the explanation. Krishna's own internal potency, providing Krishna the opportunity to experience the despair of the cowherd boys entering into the mouth of Aghasura. was facilitated by his own internal potency. And thus his will didn't prevail, but his will is prevailing. On a rasa level, his will is prevailing. It's a nice principle to remember that behind everything, and therefore Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu, to understand bhakti, one needs to understand rasa. And rasa is subtle, but it rules. It rules over Balaram, it rules over Krishna, it rules over the devotees, it rules in the realm of transcendence. It's a nice understanding. A little complicated sometimes. Therefore, acharyas help us because they understand. And how do they understand? It's revealed to them. And on what basis is it revealed to them? Their purity. How do you measure purity? How do you understand this is coming from purity and that's coming from speculation? Then the larger picture of the life of a Vaishnava tells the answer to that question. They're always, always, always. The same definition of bhakti. Always, always, always. Without motivation. Engaged in Krishna service. Mai Chananya Yogena Bhaktir Avyabhicharini in Bhagavad Gita's language. Avyabhichari Bhakti. In all circumstances. And reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, that sound vibration carries us to that position. That means the other things become reduced and eliminated, and the real thing becomes awakened and amplified. That's the kind of literature that the Bhagavatam is. So we like Srimad Bhagavatam. Let's see if there's some discussion. Yes.
I wanted to ask, when you talk about rasas, are there examples that you have heard of in devotees' life where they have experienced this rasa? How does that look like?
In our just contemporary devotees, not just the Bhagavatam devotees. Yes. In Bhakti Ratnakar, you know what that one is? Bhakti Ratnakar is a book that's dedicated to describing the lives of the associates of Lord Chaitanya after Lord Chaitanya departs. Bhakti Ratnakar. And in Bhakti Ratnakar, there's a section, there's many, but one that I really like is on one of the sides of Shamakund was a place where Sanatana Goswami had a bhajan kutir. And his bhajan kutir is right next to a temple of Lord Shiva. And as he was gazing one day down upon, because it's a little elevated, topographically a little elevated, looking down upon Shamakund, there's a very nice bathing place where there were young girls. It's a Radha Krishna pastime place. It's a celebrated place where Radha and Krishna would sport together without all the detail. So he was looking over Shamakund. And on the other shore, he saw some girls that were playing, and he saw what looked to him like a serpent climbing up the braid of one of the gopis. and he called out loudly to the gopi, the young girl, "Look out, there's a serpent." And she turned and smiled. And then he understood this was not just the appearance of a serpent, it was a pastime of the personality of Godhead, and the gopi was one of Radharani's gopis. There's another circumstance in Bhakti Ratnakar that's Rupa Goswami was absorbed in chanting. So much absorbed in chanting that a pastime of Radha and Krishna was being performed in his mind, a literal pastime. And there was some exchange, verbal exchange, he could hear and see. And the exchange was something humorous between Radha and Krishna. And although it was in his mind or in his heart, it had what's inside comes outside, so he started laughing. And as he was laughing, suddenly his meditation broke. He tried getting back into that meditation and couldn't get back into the meditation. So he decided later he would describe this to his brother. So meanwhile, while he was laughing, one old sadhu was passing by, kind of hobbling along, and the sadhu saw what looked to him like Rupa Goswami was laughing at him. So he went and informed Sanatana Goswami, "I don't understand this. Your brother is so elevated. Why is he laughing at an old man? Because he can't walk properly." And Sanatana Goswami said, "I'll inquire, I'll investigate and get back to you." Later, Rupa Goswami said what happened, and I tried to get back into that meditation and we couldn't get back into the meditation. And I don't know what happened. So Sanatana Goswami said 2 + 2 = 4. The Brahmana was thinking, as you were laughing, that you were laughing at him. So he took offense because you didn't offend, but he took offense. Because he took offense, your meditation broke. Because your meditation broke, so you have to clear that offense. So go find the Brahmana. Here's his name. Here's where he stays. And explain to him and offer apology that you didn't mean to offend him. So Rupa did what his brother said, and he went to the Brahmana, and he explained everything. The Brahmana was holding his head, saying, "Oh, I'm the offender, you're not the offender. I was thinking you were offensive but my thinking that way was very wrong. So will you please accept my apology," and vice versa, and everything was nice. So those are 2 examples where transcendental experience, one case in a meditation, Rupa Goswami's meditation, and in another case, Sanatana Goswami seeing what he saw. It was a pastime that then Sanatana Goswami understood this was Krishna's pastime. Yeah, there's a detail. A detail is he had read something in Rupa Goswami's writings that was comparing the braids of the gopis to a serpent, and in his mind he was uncomfortable with that comparison. And then this event happened. So then he took it. This is revelation. So it's a very nice. Yes, Rupa Goswami, I like that writing of yours, especially the part about the braids of the gopis looking like serpents as they would move their head. The principle is we heard yesterday about Naimittika and Nitya Lila. So there's some pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan that are not, he is eternal, but they're occasional pastimes. But those occasional pastimes, when they become unmanifest, they're within. So they're still going on. And some, qualified persons can experience them. And so that's your question. Transcendental experience is still accessible for persons who have qualification. Anything else?
Maharaj, I have a couple of questions. If it's okay, can we extend on the Mataji's question and the example that you had given?
Go ahead.
So the second example that you had given of Rupa Goswami not being able to enter into his meditative state just by unknowingly offending a Brahmana.
Well, the Brahmana felt that he had offended, but he didn't offend.
Right, he didn't even offend it.
Yes.
Brahmana felt that way.
Therefore, how important it is to avoid offense. And even unknowingly, if that can affect Rupa Goswami, then what about the rest of us?
Exactly.
That's your point.
That's the question.
Yeah. Be vigilant. You know, and ultimately, Krishna is the checks and balance. He'll take care of it. But from our side, we must be vigilant. And Krishna will protect us. Even if unintentionally or we mean well and someone reads it otherwise. Krishna will protect. The other question?
So the other question is from yesterday's class, Maharaj. One of the slides. It says the basis of compassion for the living entities and one's devotion to Krishna is the same. Chaitanya Shikshamrita. Can you say?
It's there are layers and levels of answering that, but a simple one is, if you see that which is from Krishna separate from Krishna, then how can there be love for Krishna? Or conversely, when there's love for Krishna, how can you see that which is connected to him as separate from him? So therefore they're interconnected. It's part and parcel. It's saying the same thing in a different way. I spent some time discussing the Sammadarshana topic, and as you go on in your devotional life and you read this quality that a learned person or a sadhu or a devotee or whatever label, they see living entities equally. And what does that mean? It means what you just said. They're connected. Love for Krishna is not disconnected from living entities. And there's different grades of living entities. Some this, some that, some the other. Some are human form, some are uncivilized, some are civilized, some are... So there's respect that goes commensurate to one's position, but the soul is to be seen as connected to the Supreme. And by culture or convention, one will offer respect commensurate with one's position. But that's on the material side. And the spiritual side, there's spirit soul and connected to Krishna. It's the love for Krishna implies love for living entity, not conversely. Real love doesn't exist. Real love doesn't exist, Bhakti Siddhanta. There's no love in the material world. What? I love my family. I love my whatever. But that's not what love is. That's the message. Love for Krishna implies similar, similar feelings of affinity and affection for living entities. And therefore, when the God-realized person knows living entities are suffering, they want to do something. You can't just move without those feelings of concern for the well-being of people and how many people are suffering. All living entities in the material world, they're suffering. What to do? Okay. That was it.
Unknowingly, we may offend somebody.
It's just part of existing. You can't go out of existence. Not an option. So existing, then unknowingly, unintentionally, or unknowingly, or not even factually, someone may feel. So Krishna's got your backside. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.